welcome to Film Fights with Friends. I'm still getting out of the habit of
It's all the F's. It's kind of a bit of a tongue twister. You have to breathe.
Film Fights with Friends. Fuck off.
You have to breathe and get ready for it.
Yes. But we have an amazing guest for this episode, man.
Absolutely.
I'm totally excited.
Scott
Boyett, friend of mine for like 30 years. You met him
when we went to LA and we trained with him.
Yep, you met him. He's a arms and armor expert. Firearms expert.
He taught me my favorite term while we were in LA, and it's called giggle trigger.
Yes. We'll let him explain that. We'll let him explain it on the show. But I've known Scott for 30 years. Back when he was living in New York as an actor, he was on Broadway with many productions. I mean, I don't even want to list them all because it's just forever. He was on Broadway. He was trained with Shakespeare and Company. He trained at Oxford when he was living in England.
Mm-hmm.
He's a legit thespian, as they say. And he left New York after 9/11, and he relocated to L.A. But this dude's been doing firearms shit for like over 20 years.
His resume is insane.
He works as an EMT. He's a 911 responder as an EMT. He's a firearms instructor, mainly private to actors and stunt performers. He's a consultant to many, many TV shows. He's got a bachelor's and master's degree in military history, and his master's specializes in what? Japanese,
yeah.
Japanese arms. Armor.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Like,
this is the guy. If you want to do a show like we're about to do on the historical accuracy of weapons and arms in movies.
We're going to break down 3 films in this episode. We're going to do The Way of the Gun, right?
Yeah.
Mosul, and Last of the Mohicans.
Yeah, one of your favorite movies.
One of my favorites. I think it's one of everybody's favorites.
And the idea came because Scott teaches back in 2017 or 2018, I took a class with Scott in LA. They taught with another guy, Charles Courier, who they taught a workshop called Firearms for Actors or Shooting for Actors or something. But you shot about 30 different firearms all day on the range, starting with World War I era guns, worked your way up through each weapon up to modern times. And before you would fire each weapon, you'd get about a 10-minute history lesson on how Weapon A evolved to Weapon B and Weapon B evolved to Weapon C. It was amazing.
Pretty awesome.
And so what I'm hoping is that this episode will be sort of like a mini version of that.
Oh, nice.
Because we're doing, 3 films, 3 time periods.
Definitely.
3 different tactical skills, 3 different everything.
Yeah.
Starting with Last of the Mohicans, Way of the Gun, and Mosul, which was a suggestion of his for this episode. First time I saw it is amazing.
Amazing. Me too.
Yeah.
What a movie. Holy moly.
So I think everybody's going to dig this episode. It's our first sort of tactical firearm episode. And we're going to dig in, man.
We are.
So we're making this intro quick so we can save most of the time for Scott.
That's right. So let's get to our
sponsors.
Sponsors.
Yes.
And then we got a film festival.
Yeah.
And all kinds of good stuff.
Yeah. So let's once again give a plug to the Art of Filmmaking Film Festival, which is coming this September.
Yes.
So if you have a stunt sequence that you want to submit to the festival, the winner of the best stunt performance will be on this show. The Film Freeway link is in the show notes of this episode. So definitely submit to that. It's a great festival. We'll see you there if you go.
That's right. And our sponsors, Stunt Contact.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Everything that you guys do have done for us. I mean, we're coming to the end of our season, and we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you guys. So thanks so much for the support.
Yeah, totally. And of course, Fight or Flight Entertainment.
Brett,
you're
from
awesome.
The beginning, you're awesome, man. Thank you so much for all your support. You're the best.
Yeah, man. And if you're following or not following or listening to this episode on whatever platform you're on, follow, subscribe, show us some love, throw us some comments. We'll get back to you. Review us, please. And, and we'll show the love back.
That's right.
Throw your name on this episode, maybe.
Well, we do bring up the comments that we get. So,
if you comment on YouTube, we'll bring it up here. If you're a paying Patreon member, we'll give you a shout. Cool. I think that's about it.
That's about it.
We really need to roll right into this
Let's
episode
get into it.
we're doing 3 movies today.
Yeah.
All right,
3 movies we definitely want to talk a lot about.
Yes, totally. So let's bring Scott on.
Here we go.
Yo, and here we are.
Here we are
with one of my oldest and best friends, Scott Boyett.
Scott, what's going on?
How's it going, guys?
Good, man.
Scott's one of my newest best friends.
One of the newest best friends. But Scott and I go way back, dude. Like
Jurassic era. Yeah.
We were studying Kung Fu together in the 90s.
Yep.
When he was working as an actor on Broadway and doing theater and stuff like that.
It's been a minute. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely been.
And you were already like 60 then.
Yeah, totally. So you are like the perfect guest for this type of show that we wanted to dive into the technical, historical aspects of firearms and weapons.
Awesome.
Like there's nobody else besides you, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like we went through your bio in the intro, but it's like, dude,
we had to stop. We didn't have enough time.
You're a fucking overachiever, dude.
I have led an interesting couple of lives, that's for sure.
Yeah, for sure, man. So we're not going to rehash it now, but people can read the show notes where we have your full bio there and just know that this dude's an expert, basically born into the business of arms and armor, right?
Yeah. I mean, pretty much. I grew up. I mean, you see the old Indiana Jones movies, so that, the kid growing up in the museum. That was my house, but it was all arms and armor there. Yeah.
I mean, I didn't even know when I read your bio. I didn't even know. As long as I've known you, I didn't know your first job in the business was buying and was buying as a dealer in England, right?
Yeah, I was traveling traveling the UK. I was going to different auction houses, and then I would work with some of the I guess the curators and stuff of the collections. Some of the stuff was sketchy. Some of it wasn't. There was also some famous antique shops in London.
Right.
I won't name them because some were great and some were a little sketchy, but go in and I would actually get a request for, hey, we're looking for a Tower of London 1790s horse pistol. Like, okay, and this guy has one, so we'd go in and I'd take a look and report back and say, this is what I found. Here are the markings. Here are the foundry markings. Here are all the things that I saw. Here's the conditions it's in. My recommendation is, it's a great piece. Yes, it's authentic. Or no, this looks sketchy and this looks redone and fixed and there's a crack here and that kind of thing. So, yeah. And I had a mentor who, God bless him. He was one of the coolest dudes ever. Just this tiny little cowboy who lived in my hometown. His name was Tom Lewis, and he was a foremost.
And you're from Colorado. Correct?
Yeah. Little Evergreen, Colorado. Yeah. Tiny little town west of Denver up in the mountains. And, this fella, he was the foremost expert in the world on Kentucky rifles. And when I was studying in London, I would meet up with him, and he would take me to the tower. He had friends who were curators of the arms and armor in the back, not the stuff you see in the museum. It would be in the back area, and we'd go over things. And Tom would walk in. Oh, that's where that went. Like what? Oh, that wheel lock from the 1400s. Yeah, I used to own that. Like what?
Wow. And what's his name?
His name was Tom Lewis. He's passed now, but he was a mentor of mine for many years and quite a guy.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so how did the acting thing happen? And what bug? How'd you get that bug?
I kind of got the bug in college, and then applied for sort of audition and went out to New York City, started working there. I got when I was working, I got my degree in history, and I worked with a pretty high level, pretty well known military historian, Dennis Showalter. He was my mentor in college. So that's when I went. When I was in London during college, I would go over there. Kind of got the bug, went over there, learned some Shakespeare, and was kind of doing the classical theater thing, Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I because I knew a bunch of people through Tom, I was working as well. Right. So I'd travel around on breaks and stuff. And
what kind of work?
Just going around to the auction houses, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, that kind of work. Yeah. Got to make money somehow when you're in school.
You've got to make money somehow when you're not in school.
That's true.
Yeah, for sure. So I remember the first time I saw any kind of theatrical combat, anything, you and I went to, there was some, it was like, we went to a show we went to a theater show where it was just scenes, like combat scenes. I remember that.
Yeah. That was a bunch of guys that I worked with. We did I think it was the New York Renaissance Fair. There was a bunch of my friends from that.
Yeah.
And we all fought together and that was a fun one.
It's cool, man.
Some stuff worked, some stuff didn't, live theater.
So the 3 movies we're doing today.
Yeah.
I know Last of the Mohicans, one of his favorites. When he heard that you suggested it, he got all excited.
I was like, I love this movie. It's one of my favorite movies.
Yeah, totally. And then Wave the Gun, which we've been wanting to do an episode on for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
A movie way ahead of its time.
Oh, heck yeah.
Way
also
ahead of
directorial.
its time.
Also Macquarie's directorial debut, which is 2 directorial debuts we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
That guy.
And
what's he gone on to do? I can't remember.
I don't know. Basically,
Mission Impossible and Reacher and all the coolest stuff ever.
Yeah, totally.
Didn't he write The Usual Suspects?
He wrote The Usual Suspects. Yeah, Suspects. Pretty crazy.
Yeah, dude's awesome.
And then the 3rd movie was a recommendation by you, which neither of us had seen, that totally blew us away, which was
amazing
Mosul.
movie.
Good.
Also a directorial debut.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that. But let's start with Last of the Mohicans. Totally. I mean, just off the bat, right? What are your initial impressions as an expert in this field with that movie and the scenes and the real first battle we see is the ambush, right?
Mm-hmm. When they're walking through the woods.
Yeah, legendary scene. I mean, number one, so Michael Mann, legendary director, big fan of his ever since Miami Vice, really. Mm-hmm. That whole Phil Collins thing with the drums and Miami Vice.
We're talking Miami Vice, the movie or the series? Because Michael Mann was involved with both.
Yeah, the series.
I'm talking the series. I'm talking the original. If you go back on YouTube and see them, they hold up.
For those youngsters out there, I just wanted to make sure that they knew that they were the series. That's why I did that.
Yes. Emmy award-winning series, did really well.
Yeah.
And if you go back and watch a lot of them, they really hold up story-wise. Now, you asked what is it about Last of the Mohicans that holds up or that is exemplary as a sort of an action film. Part of it is the authenticity, right? I mean, we know Daniel Day-Lewis. He's a very, very method actor. He's like legendary for being the method actor. We know that he did go for, I don't know how long it was, but it was a 6 weeks, 6 months, something that he did where he actually went in the woods, worked with a guy who was a nativist and sort of shot his own food and skinned his own deer and learned to fire a musket, learned to fire it well, all these sort of things. And I think one of the things that we'll see as a through line throughout all of these movies, if you watch them, is the idea, the weapons handling. If you're noticing the weapons handling, unless it's a feature of the movie, it's invisible. What you watch is the story. You get involved in the story, you get involved in the people. The weapons handling is something that's invisible, but on a very high level. And that's right. Something that Daniel Day-Lewis did with Last of the Mohicans. It's something, again, before that, I guess, was it 94? I forget when that movie came out, but it was something that I mean, I grew up seeing in rendezvous. There's a thing called the Mountain Man Rendezvous we had every year where you'd have a bunch of people, sort of reenactors, kind of cosplaying a little bit, and they'd come to a place and people would set up tents and sell stuff, and everyone was dressed sort of as a mountain man or was that something from that era. And everything was black powder. We had axe throwing competitions and knife throwing competitions, and we'd shoot black powder. And it was kind of a fun it was like the mountain version of a carnival. And other than that, I don't think people at large had really seen the authenticity of that culture from that period before. And that's a big part of it. Again, Daniel Day-Lewis did an incredible job, not only of learning to shoot a flintlock or Kentucky rifle. Remember, these things are super long. They're they're rifled. They're not smoothbore.
I mean,
and we can get into that, but.
How heavy are they? Because remember the one scene where he's double fisted with the rifles?
Oh, and he shoots the 2 guys from the hips.
Like, is that a realistic? I mean, are they that? How heavy are they?
They're heavy. They're very front. Let's put it. They're balanced, but they're front heavy. Right. So especially, I mean, they're a good 5 feet long. I mean, some of them. You got some later on. You got like the Hawken rifles that were a lot shorter and a lot bigger caliber. And again, they were rifled barrels, but they went to so the idea is velocity, powder develops this kind of thing. Well, we can get into that, but so they're heavy, bottom line. And I would say part of the authenticity of the fighting and that ambush scene is a great scene. I mean, you can feel the absolute just terror of that whole column as they're walking. They're starting to hear things, right? And then the one guy comes out.
Well, it's like the guerrilla warfare versus the Brits who just go line up in formation like they're trained to do, and they just get slaughtered.
So
Yeah.
I actually have a question for you about that scene. It was one of the first things, like rewatching it now, knowing that I am going to speak with an expert. When they're lined up on both sides and, you know, the soldiers are going up down the middle and then they're shooting, how are they not shooting each other?
They are. I mean, it's bad tactics.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't in an enfilade you want to go in an L shape, right? You want it so you're not shooting each other,
Right.
crossing like that. You're absolutely. It's I mean, but they are flanked on both sides.
Yeah.
So I guess the idea is we're just going to, and remember,
Get
a lot
down low and shoot high.
Well, no. If you look in if you watch, a lot of them are sitting in the trees still, and they're kind of sniping at them. It's not a full on European style bayonet charge. Right. And you know, the one thing about that scene that I wish was a little more, and I get that this, you know, it's just cinematic. And so it, you know, you need to show that the Native Americans are kind of an overwhelming force and they're taking these guys out. The British were the best fighting force in the world at that time. They're kind of like the Americans are now. I mean, nobody did war better than the British back then. They knew how to fight. They were very good at fighting. They were very good at, they trained in hand to hand. They knew how to use their bayonets. They were very well disciplined. And so they didn't show that as much. I mean, they didn't do the call. I mean, you saw that there was one quick scene where the commander calls out a course of fire, you know, aim, fire, and they do. And you notice that nobody goes down. Well, at that range, and there was a misnomer that the Brown Bess, which was the rifle at the time, the 68 caliber rifle, big old bullet, big old round bullet, wasn't that accurate. We've tested them out to 200 yards. It's surprising actually what you can hit. It's a lot more accurate, especially inside 100 yards. That rifle's a lot more accurate than you think it is.
And just to pause, like for the listeners and the viewers, we do have these fights linked in the show notes. So if you want to see the fight we're talking about,
excellent,
just hit pause. Yeah. Hit pause. Go watch the fight. They're listed in order of what we're going to discuss. So, yeah.
I also have another question, and I'm going to bring up another movie, which is The Patriot with Mel Gibson.
Yep.
And I feel like that in the hand-to-hand combat fighting in that movie, there was something that I felt they didn't do a lot in Last of the Mohicans, and they just. And that was flipping the pistol upside down and using it as a weapon.
As a club?
As a club. I felt like I didn't see a lot of that in Last of the Mohicans. Is there a time when that started happening, or did they just kind of not do it?
No, I mean that was very common. It's well documented. I mean, you see that in a lot of your cinematically. You see a lot in your pirate movies from the 1920s, 1930s. You know, the Warhawk or not Warhawk, it was Warhawk, Errol Flynn. So there's a bunch of movies where they show that. No, it was I mean, look, you have one round and then you have a big club.
Right.
Those things are not small. I don't think I have one with me here.
I love how you just look behind you.
I'm in the cave. I'm in the man cave. I've got a lot of stuff at my disposal here.
I've been in the cave. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah. But they're a large size and they're weighted. So yes, that's I think that was more a choice of the you know, the fight director,
right?
Sure. And you know how they wanted to choreograph things. Let's look at there's it's a silly word that they use sometimes called verisimilitude. It just means more real. Yeah, right. And I feel like Michael Mann, he really focuses on the reality of things. Cora, if you watch that ambush scene, Cora shoots one of the native guys in the forehead. I mean, she could turn that thing around, but really, I mean, is she strong enough to really use that and wield that against someone?
I think that was the second ambush scene when Cora shoots them. The first ambush scene was the small one in the woods, and then there's the
you're talking
big
about that
one. Then there's the big second one.
That's the one I thought you were talking about.
When the general goes down.
Well, the second one is when they're retreating, when they've surrendered to the French,
and now Magwa's going to break the treaty and go kill them and try and get the daughters. But then there's the small one in the opening scene
when they're going to Fort Henry.
When they're going to Fort William Henry,
yeah.
And they get hit by the small and when you first realize Magwa's like a traitor.
Right.
That first battle. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's no, I think that was just more of a cinematic choice. It's common. I mean, you see that I mean, you see that on YouTube, people grabbing a stick or something and just wielding. I mean, it's
Sure.
something, and that's what it was. You had one round, and then you turn it around, and you got to be able to use it, especially close in, right?
They had a reenactor. They had I got his name here, Dale Fetzer. He was the reenactment coordinator for the film.
Mhm.
I mean, it was so funny. I was going through the credits, and the list of historical and technical advisors, and it was so long, right? It was just like this, the Native American advisor, I mean, you've got the armorers, the historical liaison, Eric Chung, Vern Crowfoot, master armorer, the technical military advisor, Captain Dale Dyer.
Captain Dye, yeah.
Captain Dye. Do you know who he is?
Oh, I've worked with him.
Oh, you do it. Oh, tell us about him a little bit.
Great dude. He's a former Marine. I mean, that's all you need to know. Great dude. I've shot with him. I've taught with him a few times. Yeah, I've been his RSO. Cool. He's a great dude. A lot of fun. A little crusty, a little salty.
Well, I mean,
in a fun way.
The movie was 1992, and I'm assuming he was already retired and moved on, right?
Was
he active?
Retired from the military? Yeah. No, he was in. If I recall correctly, he had something to do with Platoon. I don't think he wrote it, but or maybe he did. He's been in Hollywood forever. He's a legend.
Yeah.
He was the military advisor on Saving Private Ryan, on the Pacific. I have a bunch of friends who work with him on that.
Well, actually, Charles worked on the Pacific.
Charles, right? Exactly. Yeah,
Charles Courier, who taught that class with you.
That's right. Yeah.
You know what? One thing that stood out to me in between the two ambushes, when they're having the siege of the fort, and how you were saying like the technical aspects
when they send the runner out.
Yeah, but I'm talking about when the scene that really stuck out to me for some reason is when Daniel Day-Lewis, when Hawkeye's up there firing, and he's got the guys reloading and handing them new muskets each time. Like he fires, the next one's loaded. The fires, the next one's loaded. I'm like, so a speed loader at this time is 5 of your friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just having the rifles ready.
I mean, they talked about the Minutemen, the American Minutemen during the American, Revolution, and the Minutemen supposedly, I don't know how, you had to be pretty good, but they were able to load and fire 5 times in a minute.
That's insane.
3's pretty good. Yeah, but
that's insane. That is insane.
Especially since the way black powder works, you have to tamp it down. It has to be compressed in order to explode, right? Because otherwise, black powder just burns. So,
yeah, very interesting. And so but just to dial it back a little bit for the people who didn't read the bio, which is very long, you have your bachelor's and your master's degree in military history.
That's right.
And then your master's is specializing in Japanese weapons and.
Yeah, my master's thesis I did on the invention of the samurai, the creation of the samurai. So it was Japanese medieval history.
Right. That's
awesome.
Yeah. And then you're also a shodan in taijutsu, and you've studied a bunch of different martial arts because that's how we met.
That's right.
So yeah, man. So the second ambush. That was that was the retreat from the fort after they.
Yeah, that was after they surrendered, and then he had when Magua with the French commander, he's like, yeah, if something happens, it's like, and we don't do it, he's like, okay.
I love the scene though where they surrender. I love the whole showing honor and just like you defended well, you're great, I respect you, blah blah blah, but
then afterwards, he's like, he literally is like, you killed him on the retreat. I don't care.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't want to fight these guys again. Killed them.
Yeah. I mean, you look at, see about this a little later than this. I mean, there's Wellington and Napoleon, guess what? 25, 30 years later, there's a European way of war that happens on the continent. I mean, and there's sort of a gentleman's agreement. You don't shoot the officers because all the rabble would just go crazy, and we can't have that. I mean, there's all kinds of little rules that run into technology later on. I mean, if you look at the progression of just war in general, those rules stay in place. That sort of way of thinking stays in place, but technology gets a lot more deadly until you have the American Civil War to you have the Sino-Japanese War, then you have World War One, and things get really, really brutal with everyone still thinking the same way. Institutional inertia.
You brought up Napoleon. I have a weird question to ask. Did he actually? So you said that they had all these different rules, and one of those rules were like they would like break for lunch, and they would like have, and I heard that he was just like no, and just like in the lunch break he would just attack.
Yeah, no, he was a. Can we swear?
Yeah, fucking A.
He was a motherfucker. Have you watched? I mean, look, there's a lot of, millions of books written about him. Real controversy about the guy. I've been to his gravesite. I've been to Les Invalides. I'm a fan of Napoleon as far as tactics, tactician. And look, his stuff. It's just like Robert E. Lee in the American Civil War. His stuff worked till it didn't. Robert E. Lee split his forces, and that worked for him for a bunch, and then it didn't. Napoleon would just keep the supply chains longer and longer and longer, and he would forage off the land. Well, that didn't work when winter hit in Russia. There's certain things that they just work until they don't. I mean, as a battlefield tactician, the guy was brilliant, and he was an artillery guy. So he just used used what he knew.
So we see in this movie, and I guess I'm asking you, like you said, there was this convention, this European convention, but obviously breaking the rules is a key to victory, and so often, right? I mean, that's how these ambushes and the sort of guerrilla approach of the Native Americans, and so like at what point do these rules start to, like you said, World War I came, they're still trying to hold on to these rules. At what point does technology and everything else overwhelm the rules, and then those rules don't apply anymore?
I would say after World War One. I mean, they called World War One the war to end all wars. I mean, the amount of artillery, the amount of brutality, the idea of setting up trench lines and we're just going to shoot at each other. Right. That was an offshoot of just standing in front of each other, walking onto a battlefield and standing in front of each other, and a lot of that was due to technology. Original. Remember. Okay, let's start with firearms, right? So original firearms were smooth bore. You would put a round ball into a smooth bore, and then you would touch it off with a match, with a wheel lock, with flintlock, whatever. You'd have an explosion go off in your face, which was hard enough to, if you ever shot one of those things, you literally are having an explosion next to your face, and there's powder and there's sparks and but you remember there's a thing called a hang fire, right? Say a flintlock, the flintlock goes forward, you have the little flash, and you've heard the term flash in a pan. Well, the flash goes off and the rifle doesn't go off. That's called a hang fire, and you got to wait for a second, boom. Well, if you move at all before that goes off, you're going to be, so you got to be able to pull that trigger and wait and hold on target until the rifle goes off. So that's one thing.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's not automatic, it's not instant like we're used to now. Even with mercury fulminate and caps and the cap locks, was a lot faster ignition. But so think about that. Think about a wheel lock or a match lock where you have a little match that would touch the powder off, and it would explode or it wouldn't. Maybe it's wet, maybe it's humid out, that kind of thing. So because the rifles worked the way they did, we would all stand in front of each other, get as close as we could. And there's a thing called countermarch, where the guys in front would fire and they would file off, and the guys in front behind would go forward. And the British had the fighting square. They had ranks. You would kneel down, prone, whatever. I don't think they ever did prone. They would kneel, then you would have some to the side, then up and up, and you would and it was very effective because the people that fired were then reloading while the rank behind them was shooting.
Just volleys of bullets.
Yeah, volleys. Now again, this was all round balls. Round projectiles with smooth bore muskets,
kind of like paintball.
Actually, Scott and I, we talked
before
about,
they rifled the barrels, but when they
we had a conversation. Remember when we were talking about?
I shot a guy behind a tree once with a paintball.
I was showing him the first
you go around?
round.
Yeah, it went around the tree.
Yeah, totally. I was showing him the first strike rounds that are like the little shuttlecocks, like mini shuttlecocks, like
they're awesome.
Half a sphere with like feathered end, and now we have rifled barrels.
You can pick someone off like
markers.
200 yards out.
It's crazy, right? And those little shuttlecocks are based on the Minier ball, which was a development like the 1850s, I believe, which was a pointed projectile with a little conical hole in the back. that would be not the same. So the whole point was you would ram something down the barrel and you had to seal it. That's why in Last of the Mohicans, when they talk about having, let's use silk. Silk is I'll get an extra 100 yards or whatever he says in the movie.
Right.
Well, what silk all that does is that creates a better seal between the projectile and the powder. You can tamp it down. It's just a tighter seal, and the tighter the seal, the bigger the explosion, which means the more velocity of the projectile.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's just basic physics.
Awesome. So, fast forward now to the year 2000. Way the gun.
Oh wait, I got a quick question.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, in the scene when they're running up the mountain, right at the end, like the greatest scene ever,
Yeah.
When he pulls out, when he does that roll, right? He pulls out this fucking weapon, and it looks like a gun stock with like a I don't know what the metal thing is through it, but is that what it was? Was it a gun stock with a piece through it? Like what was that fucking weapon?
It was a war club. That's a Native American war club, and different tribes did make those. Remember, Europeans had been kind of doing incursions into that area for a long time, and they would come in and they would actually trade rifles for pelts. People would make hats out of beaver, so they wanted beaver. So they would trade pelts of animals. One of the reasons why the muskets were so big is they would trade one rifle and they would stack the amount of pelts. Well, the longer the rifle, the more pelts they got for one rifle. So that it was a way of kind of cheating the Native Americans in a way. There's a lot of little stuff, and I talked about this with the guys with copper and all that. The British are the ones that truly invented scalping as a way of bringing in a bounty on your enemies. It wasn't Native Americans that did that. It was more of a, at least in that area. There's a, wait, what was your original question? I go down tangents in my own head.
Was that
the
weapon
war
that
club,
he
the war
used,
club, right?
Did they like, because it was like a club, but it looked like it had like a spear through the end of it.
Yeah. So it's a Native American war club, and different tribes did things like that. There's also basic clubs that look kind of like that. It had a big sort of stone ball in the end. That's what Magua had. Magua had one with a ball on it. Right.
And then and then he comes up, but it was like blue, and just the shape of it looked, and it looked like it had the gun stock.
Yeah.
And then it was just, was just wondering, I was like, so did they just were like, okay, here, this is a weapon now.
So you're thinking like, did some creative prop maker create this thing, or
no, was that an actual? Because I remember, I think when I went to West Point, I remember seeing a version of it in West Point, but wasn't as slick.
It was an authentic thing that they did.
I went to West Point for a visit. I didn't actually go there.
Okay, I was going to say,
by the way.
What was your MOS there, soldier? They were authentic. They did make those. I don't know the sort of the development of them. It could be, what I was getting at was basically you had these traders, these trappers that would come in and trade rifles. Sometimes they would break, sometimes they would rust. I imagine they turned it into a club. I mean, some enterprising person, and someone else looked at it and went, hey, that's kind of effective. Let's put a spike on this end. I mean, that's how most weapons develop anyway, right? I mean, I killed the guy, but you know what? This didn't quite kill him as efficiently as I'd like. Maybe I'll just design it a little different.
That's so awesome.
Exactly. Or make the guy jump into an empty fountain full of broken glass.
Ouch.
Like in the final fight, the final firefight of Way the Gun.
One of the finest pieces of acting ever was when he pulls that glass out of his arm in that scene, and he's like, whoa.
Dude, speaking of what are the weapons, you were asking, and you wanted to ask Scott, what was Benicio del Toro's
What was he shooting in that final scene? That was a big gun, and it looked like
the semi-auto was a Galil.
And so that scene,
Israeli gun,
when he was like moving backwards, and he was shooting across the wall, and you saw like his whole volley of shots, and there was not one single out of that line. Is that possible?
Sure.
That was amazing.
Sure.
Like, can somebody really do that?
Well, you shot the AK, or did you shoot the AK or the AR? I forget which one.
No, I shot the AK. He shot the AR.
I shot the AR. Yeah.
I mean, I've shot the AR with you too.
Yeah. Did you guys ever switch? I mean, look, the Galil is an Israeli version of the AK. Yeah. It's the same operating system. Yeah. It just looks a little different, and it's in .223 caliber, I believe, instead of
The specialists, they're the big armory here in New York. They're kind of like the ISS of New York. But every time I'm on Blacklist, I end up getting a Galil for some reason.
Well,
that's the only reason I know it.
It's like the Beretta 92 pistol. They're or the Glock. They're easier to make into something that you can, as a prop pistol.
Right.
It's easier to kind of turn into something you can cycle if you're using actual blanks, that kind of thing. So,
right.
That's all that is. They don't. I mean, the Israelis don't use them anymore. They're heavy, they're big, they're a little bit outdated. I mean, everyone uses an AR or an AK platform pretty much.
But boy, we can rewind and go. And there's so many cool things to talk about in the way of the gun. I was like, we just jumped to the end scene, but holy moly! I mean, there's so much great tactical stuff, and I completely forgot about the driving scene.
Oh, the scene
when they were chasing each other through the alley.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's just again remind the listeners and viewers that the Way of the Gun videos are linked in the show notes.
Yes.
So they should watch this stuff.
Written and directed by Christopher McQuarrie, which we already went over.
Yes. Yes. This was his directorial debut. Pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm. Pretty amazing debut. Yeah. Excellent movie.
But his brother, right? His brother was the tactical advisor mainly on this movie. His brother was
and then his sister or wife was also in it as well.
There's I don't know.
I think his wife was the costumer.
Yes.
Yeah, the costumer. Yeah.
I think that was
Yeah. And I was looking at the credits. There's a guy, Kevin McQuarrie. I don't know how he's related to them, but I guess when you're a first-time director, you bring in your entire family. Why not? And he was the set massage therapist. And the only reason that stuck out to me because my very first time on a big set, was on this movie called Dead Broke, back when I was working as a massage therapist. And I was the set massage therapist on that movie with Jill Hennessy, Tony Roberts, Paul Sorvino, and Justin Theroux.
Oh, wow.
And it was like 1998. It would have been a direct-to-DVD movie. I don't think it ever went anywhere. But it's like, I was like, oh, this is cool. This is like what it's like to be on a big movie set,
Mm-hmm.
But when I saw they had a set massage therapist, I was like, oh, cool. That's awesome. But dude, so yeah, let's start with that scene. The car scene. You're talking about the car where he puts it in neutral and they
have their foot out the car and they're kind of like walking with the car and then they back up. I mean, that whole scene, but I also just have to give a quick shout out to the greatest opening scene that is just it with Sarah Silverman. The opening scene when they punch her in the face.
Do you know what her screen credit is?
Oh,
her screen credit is Raging Bitch.
Raging Bitch, yeah. It is that opening scene, considering the fact that it's not a well-known movie.
Yeah.
That opening scene is one of my favorite random, just for no reason.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so great. And watching her just get punched in the face is pretty hilarious. And I think who hits her? Ryan Phillippe punches her in the face, right?
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Benicio del Toro steps on her friend's toes.
I still can't quite figure out why they were sitting there on that guy's car and why they were inciting that. I mean, I don't remember exactly the.
That's exactly why I was like, it was just such a random scene, and they were just like,
it's like they show Benicio and Ryan Phillippe coming out of the club and leaving, counting money.
Yep.
My only thought is they must have had just scammed somebody. They must have. I mean, why else would they be out there counting money or whatever? And then they're sitting on the car and the car alarm's going off and that starts the fight with the car owner because Sarah Silverman is like, basically go defend your car. Right. It's crazy.
Yeah. I don't know. That was when I thought, okay, maybe this is the scam and they're going to get beat up and they're going to get beat up for a reason and it's going to be a distraction for something else. And when watching it, I thought it would be that and it wasn't, but
it's like, this is just how we roll.
Yeah.
It just
what these guys do.
Them. Yeah. It just introduces them as these two kind of wanderers.
Yep.
It is kind of like a spiritual sequel to Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid. I've heard people say that, but it kind of is similar. These two guys, kind of roaming, and they do end up in Mexico in a small town, and surrounded.
For sure.
And we don't see them die, just like in Butch Cassidy. You assume they're going to die because they're left laying on the ground, bleeding and dying.
And let's just go leading up to before the car scene. They have this great scene where they actually kidnap her and take her from the bodyguards. and they walk up and they pull the gun, and then they do the whole when they walk and they're moving, and they're clear, and
the bounding overwatch.
Yeah, that was, at least I thought that was done really well, and that was the first time I had ever seen two people work like that in a situation of that, like that in a movie.
Well, what's great about that is that okay, so who, especially in 2000, remember this is before the global war on terror, right?
And you got to figure they shot this in the like 99, 98.
Yeah,
if it came out.
So who knew how to do bounding overwatch? Only the military. The law enforcement doesn't do that. They do it now, but you know, we've I'll talk about this in a minute. But we have a lot of lessons and a lot of veterans who are out there teaching a lot of stuff, lessons learned from the wars, which is there's a similarity to ancient Japan anyway. Who knew how to do that? Well, it was just military guys. So you don't know what these guys' backgrounds are. But what one of the brilliant things about the movie and the brilliant things about the writing is there's this backstory that you see based on behavior. You don't know who they are, but only military guys do that. So obviously did they meet in the Marines? Did they meet in Special Forces? Did they meet in the Army? Did they just watch videos and see guys do this? You don't know, but their gun handling is good enough that they have a background somewhere, and that's one of the brilliant things about the writing, I feel, in this film.
I think that's all.
And credit to Doug McQuarrie, I guess, who was the advisor on all that.
It's also what you're saying kind of fits the constant run-ins they had with the other bodyguards and why they were always losing. They were always one step tactically ahead of the other bodyguards. And even in their conversations with James Caan was like, "You're not fucking military. You don't know what I'm saying. You don't get it."
You mean the two bodyguards?
The two bodyguards. Yeah. Then that was kind of like
Jeffers and Obex.
That was like a little bit of the back and forth when he would use his military jargon, and they're like, "What are you talking about?" And so they were in the dialogue, they were letting you know that these two bodyguards were not trained military. They were just two fucking bodyguards.
Right. They were tough guys, and apparently,
and good at what they do. But and similarly though, right, in the scene with James Caan and Benicio del Toro in the cantina, you get the feeling that Benicio del Toro was, the way they talked. You get the feeling that Benicio del Toro was.
They speak the same language
in that world. They were speaking the same language.
Yeah, and I've heard this before from a superior officer type of thing. Yeah. I've heard your crap before, kind of thing. So
yeah, totally.
Yeah. That's what makes. So that's one of the things that makes these movies set apart. I feel like is great writing and a backstory. It's why I love Quentin Tarantino too. Quentin Tarantino will write a full backstory, and you'll never see any of it on screen. But he'll write a full backstory for a character, make the actor read it, and then he'll never shoot any of it. But there's parts of it that are there.
The lineage of his characters connected through movies is ridiculous. Like the grandfathers being grandfathers being in Reservoir Dogs, or the grandkids being in Reservoir Dogs, and like Paula Schultz and all of these people all being connected, and all of their relatives being in Inglourious Bastards. It's insane. His writing.
No,
I love how when during the initial kidnapping, how the two bodyguards though did just like train their guns on her belly.
Oh yeah, they were like, we know what this is about, so we'll just kill the kid, and then what are you gonna do?
Yeah. I mean, they were smart, but the other guys were smarter.
They were cold. I mean, they were cold as fuck. Like when he was like, "We're gonna take your baby out now."
Yeah.
It's like, damn.
Yeah. Crazy, man.
But and then the other scene, the sniper scene at the hotel, when they go and they take the Overwatch, and they take the high ground, and then they just kind of watch it all go down, and then they just start shooting everybody.
So that's something else that I feel like this movie was very much ahead of its time. You saw my bio. I train with a lot of LAPD SWAT guys. And one of the things we talk about and we use as a scenario is the Jason Aldean concert in the shooting in Las Vegas. And the idea that there were some armed officers there who were off duty who could have started putting rounds on that sniper. Well, in this movie, it's the only time I've ever seen, could be somewhere else, but that scenario where the bodyguard starts putting rounds on the sniper with his pistol. And people think, oh, it's
Yeah.
a pistol, I can't hit it. Well, we train regularly to shoot at 300 yards with a pistol, just for that reason, specifically for that, because people don't think they can do it. And once you realize how to man-sized target at 300 yards with a 9mm, you go, oh, okay, I guess. So it's just opening up possibilities. So in this film, you see the bodyguard, the African-American one, start opening up on the sniper with his pistol, and his rounds are, I mean, look, they may not be accurate, but they're keeping their head down.
Tay Diggs, right?
Tay Diggs.
Yeah.
And that could have certainly, helped stop the Las Vegas shooting sooner, had somebody do that. It was just an after action report that we worked on and we train with sometimes.
Yeah, that scene was great. I mean, so for the listeners, right? So they leave their what do you call it? The person who was kidnapped? I don't know if there's a term for that.
They
For
leave the girl in the
hostage,
hotel, and they make it look like they're just going to leave her, and
then they go take the sniper position.
Well,
and
it's
then
bait.
everybody comes out.
They leave her as bait.
But again, you can see how accurate Benicio del Toro's character is, because he's shooting to either side of her to stop her from running.
Mm-hmm. He's trying to kind of hurt her.
He's he's corralling her with
keeping her out of the cop vehicle.
Yeah,
the black and white.
And it was kind of, they just did a good job of also showing him how he would lead his target.
Yeah,
and also how he was adjusting while he was shooting. I mean, it was just the whole scene. I was just like, God, nobody.
Yeah.
It's not like a guy just going, okay, I got to move up. It just, the whole thing just seemed, and even when he was shooting the pistol, he kind of just put it on the back of the car and just kind of was like, okay.
Yeah, he was using the car.
He was using the car. It's not like he was taking aim and it was just kind of like he found the angle. He's like, okay, this is where it's at. Boom.
Yeah.
And
that's what you do. It becomes an artillery piece. Your weapon becomes, it's not line of sight anymore.
There was just something about the comfortability of the way they all had use the weapons and that made every scene so emotionally charged, because you almost, again, like you were saying in Last of the Mohicans, you weren't worried about the weapons because it was just there.
It was so natural.
It was so natural.
They were so natural with it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the weapons handling was part of the storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
And it was not something that, now look, well, you have something like John Wick where the weapons handling is the point in some ways. And I love John Wick. I think it's amazing, but it's a ballet. It's a beautiful.
It's like weapons porn.
Yeah. Yeah. Gun fu. It's
yeah.
And so, but the weapons handling is the point in Wick, whereas something like Last of the Mohicans or Way of the Gun, it's done on a very high level, which informs the character, informs the story.
Well,
right?
considering that it's called the Way of the Gun, it shows that it's a way of life for them. It's not an extra. It's not something it's just part of them. It's how they are. It's their being is using these weapons, and that's just how life is then.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, even though like in the final fight with the single-handed mag changes and all that stuff, it's pretty amazing.
And you don't see that. Oh, wait, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
Well, you just don't. So you have Way of the Gun, and you see these, like you said, single-handed mag. But basically, you have a downed arm, so you're not using two hands to, whether it's in between the knees or something that they teach in police academies, or they teach that stuff. But you don't see that a lot after that movie in movies.
Or
I can't think of another movie where they show those kind of reloads. But also, that's a function of consequences. Of real life consequences. And you'll see a lot of these action films where people get shot in the shoulder and like, oh yeah, I'm up and moving around, and like, that arm is out. You're done. Yeah. And if you hit your brachial artery, you got about 30 seconds.
Yeah.
I mean, there's consequences that these movies that we're talking about show that a lot of movies don't.
Well, and just you are a working EMT. You do 911 calls in where you live in Los Angeles, and you've seen. I imagine you must have seen stuff like this. I mean,
I've had gunshot wounds. I've run on gunshot wounds, and what's fascinating to me, I had my very first gunshot wound was a guy got hit mid-axial on his right side between his fifth and sixth intercostal, and one round. And he was the target of a drive-by that like it was a mass shooting. So there's 5 guys and we showed up and he was the worst and we showed up first. So we're the one that got him on the gurney and we got him going. And it was bad. And we couldn't stop the bleeding on this. I mean, it nicked his aorta. So it was that was a rough one. But I've had other gunshot victims that are sitting there. I had one guy that got hit 7 times by a 9mm, and he was talking to me, telling me to tell his mom he's sorry. Wasn't bleeding, was fine. He got hit in places that weren't vital though. That's the thing we're talking about. I mean, like on the wrist, on the side of his thigh, and in his lower abdomen, which didn't hit any vital arteries. So he wasn't leaking. I mean, it's all about your plumbing system, right? It's all about the pressure in your plumbing system and keeping the pressure and your perfusion so your brain and your organs are getting oxygen. So if you get hit in the meat somewhere where your perfusion is not going out and your plumbing is okay, then you're going to make it.
Well, I mean, kind of, isn't your body kind of like a soda can when you puncture it? You're like, so if it gets it in the right spot, it can just. Yeah.
That's the first guy I told you about. Yeah, that's what happened. I mean, he had pneumothorax, his lung collapsed and nicked his aorta. So a lot of blood. We just weren't able to keep the blood in his body. So, yeah, wild stuff. Yeah, it's wild to sort of study this stuff from the perspective of handling of the weapons, and then studying it also from the perspective of what it does to the body, and making holes and then plugging holes.
Right.
So studying it from both sides is really interesting.
And that's what's so great about that final scene is that it is showing the damage.
For sure.
And how these guys are trying to adapt to it.
Speaking of the damage, what about the 20, 35 yard shot with the snub nose to the legs? That's pretty tough.
3. It was 3 rounds. He gets he gets him like in each leg and then in the hip. Now a shot in the pelvic girdle, sort of that's a modern common thing because there's a lot of body armor out there. So that's being taught now as a pelvic girdle shot to just take someone down. So that, again, way ahead of its time. The whole idea of just, you don't want to kill someone, but you want to take them out, pelvic girdle shot. Yeah. And they actually did.
I just love
your femoral arteries. I mean, look, the femoral arteries through there. So, yikes.
I just love James Caan in that scene, though, how calm he was the whole time. The way he would... the way he would reload, the wheel gun was just so
calm, so casual.
But again, like you were saying, like he knew what he was doing. He was doing it proper. Yeah, it was so great.
And he was well trained. He was using sort of an old school FBI technique. There's FBI, and then there's you guys ever come out again? I'd say come out and do Uncle Scotty's revolver class. It teaches you the old 1970s LAPD way, which is a whole different thing. Very cool.
Well, I was going to say, in that scene, it looked like that the 2 guys were using newer techniques. They were slicing the pie. They were doing certain things, and they were, as opposed to the other guys, were just kind of like popping out and running. The older guys, and I feel like that may have just been like kind of how things advanced tactically from probably when they were picking up and they were maybe in Vietnam or whatever, just running and gunning, as opposed to learning how to enter a room and cut the corners when they were in this Alamo place. Right. And that's why I think these guys got lit up so quickly. Because they were just running right out.
The 2-man clearing was awesome. Which we don't have to jump to Mosul yet, but one of my favorite moments in Mosul is after they recruit the young kid, and they're kind of teaching him on the job about how to stack, how to room clear, how to do all that stuff. Yeah. It was so good. It was so good.
Yeah, I mean, for a foreign film, right? That it's we don't get there yet, but that's. I will say something about Way of the Gun. Also, if you notice, it just as a time capsule, they're using revolvers. They're using pump action shotguns. I mean, today that if that movie was made, it'd be all semi-autos and HK MP5s and AR-15s and bullpups, all kinds of like high-speed stuff. The fact that they chose to use revolvers and pump-action shotguns for most of what they did, interesting choice. Yeah.
Right.
And since we're pretty much at the end of it, I also just want to say that when I rewatched it, I completely forgot that they lived because everybody ran out of ammo. everyone ran out of ammo. So like it looked like he was at the end. He was checking everything.
Oh yeah,
it
James
looked
Caan,
like he looked like he
was
might
looking
have.
for something.
So I'm like, and then they didn't have any ammo. So I was like, who knows? Who knows if he would have killed them or not? But it's not the type. He's not the type of guy that's gonna like fucking choke him. You know, because again, the movie's called kind of like The Way of the Gun. So it was just like.
But it kind of in a way reminds me, you know, like how he left. They were left. The ambulance drives off, and you can imagine them thinking like, "Fuck, the ambulance is leaving," you know. But it's like, it's that scene in Mosul. We might as well jump to Mosul, but there's that scene in Mosul where the Islamic State guy is not dead up on the rooftop, and they're like, "Nope, just let him suffer. Just leave. Don't kill him. Don't finish him off. Let him suffer." By the way, Scott, I read I'm sure you did too, but I read the New Yorker article that movie was based on. And it's linked in the show notes. It's an intense for people who haven't seen Mosul. We've linked a whole bunch of the scenes in the show notes. But dude, when you told me to watch it, I hadn't watched it. It like blew my mind, dude. Just
Good.
It's so
I
intense.
hadn't seen it either.
So
I
intense.
thought I did. There was another movie. I forget the title of it, but I mean,
it reminds me of Black Hawk Down in some ways, but you know, like the sort of, you know.
And it's one of those movies where in the last 8 minutes, so much great stuff happens that it makes you want to watch the movie again, knowing what you learned in that last 8 minutes, and then having that feeling made me want to watch it again.
Yeah.
Knowing why they were doing what they were doing.
Right.
And then it had a totally different feel the second time I watched it.
You get so invested in these guys, right? I mean, and you have all the archetypes. You have the old detective who's the sort of the leader. You have
Colonel,
the colonel, and you have all the different sort of archetypes of the soldiers. Then you have the rookie that comes in, right? So in a weird way, it's kind of that Star Wars style archetypal story. But you get
so for those listening, just the Cliff Notes version of this is the movie, and you should maybe don't read the New Yorker article before you see the movie because it will spoil some of the stuff you're talking about.
Yeah,
but it is generally about an Iraqi SWAT teams. I'll say SWAT in quotes, but they're all local, born and bred Mosul, you know, formerly cops before the war kind of thing, and their record of killing Islamic State guys is just like, you know, they're badass. They're considered the badass guys. Everything that happens in the movie, I mean, it's obviously like sort of a truncated, shortened, abbreviated version of everything, but everything that happens in that movie actually happened. It was pretty crazy. Yeah. And these guys were like marked for death by ISIS because of how many ISIS guys they took out.
Yeah, they were hunters. They're hunters.
Yeah. And by the time this movie happens, this is after the U.S. pulled out of Iraq, so they're flying solo. Like one thing that you learn in the article is that originally they worked with U.S. Special Forces, but then when we left, they just continued doing things on their own. And you could only get on the SWAT team, right, if Islamic State killed one of your family or you were wounded.
Yeah.
That opening scene when the two guys are in the police station.
The two cops.
Yeah, the two cops.
And they just keep and the ISIS just keep coming. They just keep coming in trucks. They just don't stop. Yeah. It was crazy.
Yeah.
And he pulls out a little knife. And he's out of ammo and like just.
Yep.
They both had it. And they were both ready. And then the SWAT came in
But the one kid got in because he had a family member killed by ISIS, and the other guy didn't get in because he didn't have a family killed by ISIS.
And then later, that scene was crazy.
Yeah, that was crazy. But so what's your when you recommended this movie to us? Because when we pitched you the idea, Scott, of we wanted to do 3 movies, 3 different time periods, sort of 3 different evolutions of weaponry and tactics and stuff. You suggested this movie. What was in your mind when you suggested this movie?
Because for us, The Way of the Gun and Last of the Mohicans, we were like, yeah, definitely. And then we were like, what the fuck is Mosul?
Yeah.
So, and in the best way possible, you know?
Yeah.
So how did you...
Why did you pick this one?
Part of it is, again, it's in the same genre, in the same vein. There's an authenticity to it. There's because we're talking about weapons and weapons handling. There's something where weapons handling is very much a part of the entire movie, but it is not the point of the movie, right?
Mhm.
And the idea is that you get very much involved in the characters, and these guys are badasses. They probably work with Green Berets or Delta Force or something at one point, so they're really, really good. And these actors really showed that, but it wasn't the
Mhm.
point of the movie, is to show
Mhm.
they were interested in what they were doing, not trying to be interesting. If you
Right.
know,
Right.
number two, it's a post GWAT film. Right. I mean, if you think about it, it's sort of post-American global war on terror. We've pulled out at that point. So, you know, there's a lot of in the world right now, we had this 23, 25-year war, and we have a lot of people with a lot of lessons learned who don't
Mhm.
know how to do anything else. So they're out there teaching, and I'm actually training with a bunch of them. Right.
Mhm.
So I'm learning the lessons that they learned. And this was a couple of guys that I know that were over there and were special forces guys. They really liked this movie. They were
Mhm.
really into it, and that's how I first found out about it. And I watched it, and then I asked them why they liked it, and it was the same thing. Like, the handling is great, but more it's like the camaraderie.
Mhm.
I mean, it's not Americans, but the camaraderie is no
Mhm.
different. You know, the guys
Yeah.
giving each other shit and watching the
Mhm.
soap opera and like, oh no, I like this girl. No, and one guy's really into it, you know, and it's just, and they're making fun of each other. I mean, it's sort of universal themes and universal, it could be any soldiers anywhere. And the story is really brilliant. The humanity that they bring to the characters, the story itself. And that, like you said, that last 5-10 minutes is intense.
Mhm.
Stuck
Yeah.
with me. It
Yeah.
really, when I watched it the first
Yep.
time, it really stuck with me.
Yeah.
And
Well,
yeah,
the scene. There are going to be spoilers for those listening, but the scene when they've gotten through the ISIS camp and they're clearing everything out, and
Mhm.
then he picks up he's going through all the table of porn magazines and stuff and putting it all into the milk crate, and then he picks up the milk crate and it's booby trapped, and the colonel dies. And I'll share a story without sharing the name of a person, but we have a friend who also teaches tactical stuff.
Yeah.
To performers. He's a long-time veteran,
Mhm.
Iraq, multiple tours of duty, and he was teaching a room clearing class.
Yeah, we were teaching it
here,
together.
yeah, in New York. You know, we had like the hostage and then all the baddies and stuff, and he was teaching all the stunt performers and actors how to do it proper.
Mhm.
And then he made the point: is never pick up the hostage, never have the hostage stand up, never just leave them alone. You have to, you have to search them. They're gonna probably be booby trapped, right? One of the students raised a hand and said, "Have you ever experienced that?" And it just brought him back.
Yeah.
Yeah, it brought him back. He broke down, had to take a few minutes. It was like such a trigger. But that's the first thing I thought of when I saw that scene. I was like, that's exactly what so-and-so was
Mhm.
talking about in his class.
Just don't touch anything, don't move anything.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. At the same time, that colonel, like throughout the movie, he's cleaning up. He cleans
Mhm.
things
I
up.
love
He's throwing things like that little that it makes it so human. Like
Mhm.
that he's
You-
trying to create
you
order
were-
out of his chaos, right?
my wife said he's probably a Virgo like you, because I can't go through a room without picking up garbage and putting it in a garbage pail,
Yeah.
So I'm going to go back to the beginning of when you first came on, and we brought up the kingdom. And we talked about how the characters in the kingdom, and they were so powerful about caring about them, and that it was the same writer of the kingdom that wrote and directed Mosul. And it's also something that I brought up that Peter Berg does very well, is there's just these extra scenes
Matthew Carnahan is his name, by
of
the way.
these extra characters waking up in the morning, having breakfast with their family, doing these small little things that are innocuous scenes. They serve no purpose until you get to the end of this movie and you realize that you know all these people now, and that you are attached to them. And that wasn't able to be done in Mosul visually because of the way the movie was, because they were all in the present time, and that waking up in the morning with their family was not part of this.
Right.
But he did such a great job of fucking writing that made you feel the exact all of that at the end of the movie, and you're just like, wow. It's truly, truly amazing to make you care about so many things that aren't there.
Mm-hmm.
I would say like that stuff you're talking about kind of happens at the end of the movie with the wife, where all of a sudden you see a little glimpse of that domesticity, it's like the thing that they're fighting for.
Yeah,
like that's the thing that they're fighting for, is that those benign little throwaway moments in life that they want to get back to.
After all that, for the view, he gets to the wife. There's the reuniting, the kid, the wife, the blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And then he's like, "Okay, I gotta go."
Yeah.
He's like, he's like, I have to do this for the rest of them. Yeah. Just like they did it for me, I have to keep doing it for them.
No,
I mean, so like, again, spoiler if
Huge.
you're listening and you hadn't seen the movie, but the Islamic State had captured these guys' families and had hostages, and they were holding the families hostage. So their mission became to get their families. It was just.
But that's the mystery of the movie, right? Again, spoiler alert.
Yeah.
But we don't know why we're doing this, and the rookie keeps asking why.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then at the end he finds out.
And he's the first one who's like, "Get the fuck up, let's go."
Yeah.
Let's go. Yeah.
Yeah, because it all made sense at that point. And because he wasn't, remember, what's interesting is because he wasn't from there. I mean, in the reality, right, you couldn't be on the SWAT team if you weren't from Mosul, like born and bred. Because remember when he gets in, they said, "Oh, we're taking Kurds now."
But then he was like, "Oh, his uncle got shot."
But his uncle was killed by Islamic State, so they take him.
He's an ethnic Kurd. Yeah, I mean, those guys too. Ethnic Kurds are some bad boys.
Oh yeah.
I mean, now that we're throwing the spoilers out there, when he fucking shot his uncle, when he went back and shot the cop that he got almost killed with in the beginning, when the other guys were tortured, and he just like couldn't deal with it, and he's like, they're gonna kill him. He's like, and he just fucking killed him. I was like, oh. Yeah. And that was his character turned at that point.
Yeah, there was.
Or when he kills the guy with the tomahawk.
Yeah,
I mean.
Well, that was
after that. That was almost like there was almost the second growing, of where he kind of realized he had to kill and then became a killer.
But that scene was so interesting because that's when they came across the other band of soldiers that was under the direction of the Iranians.
And they didn't fucking like each other.
And they were trying to barter like cigarettes for ammunition and all this kind of stuff. And then it became you're not even from here. What the fuck are you doing here? This whole thing. And they were arguing over who was going to get this prisoner. And the prisoner was
like the
other
uncle
cop.
guy, the other cop from the beginning.
Right. And the kid, Kawa, is that his name? Yeah. Kawa.
Mm-hmm.
He stops the arguing by just running up and tomahawking this guy to death in front of everybody. He just shuts them down, and they're like, "Okay, one case of bullets for one case of cigarettes."
Oh, that's right. He didn't shoot him. He hit him with the tomahawk. That's right.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah. And that's, I mean, what's funny. I mean, I have one of those same tomahawks right here. So that's the RMJ tomahawk. I mean, they're made in Tennessee. And again, like that movie, there's this backstory.
Is that like mini metal one?
It's it's kind of small here.
Yeah, for those listening, you should go onto the YouTube and you can check.
I have it in my garage.
Yeah. There you go.
This is an RMJ. This is a Featherlight Kestrel. These are amazing, but they're made in Tennessee. So how did it end up in Iraq? Well, obviously, it was left behind by an American soldier, right? I mean, that's what I'm talking about as far as backstory that doesn't get mentioned, doesn't get addressed. But I mean, everyone there they're using AKs, but they're in American fatigues. They're in American vehicles. They're using American pistols.
Even the beginning when they take Kawa in as a new recruit, how do they get all the shit? They take it off all the dead guys, all the dead Islamic State guys that they just killed, and they just take off all that stuff and give it to him and say, "Here, you wear this." But they gave him the hat, though.
Right, they gave him the hat, and the AK that the colonel picks up when he says, "I hate guns," has an EOTech on it. That's an American red dot.
Yeah,
I mean, so we have that.
Yeah, I have one. I'm a nerd. I have one on my paintball marker.
Me too.
So just little details like that someone like me would notice. Somebody who has been there would notice. That kind of reality, that kind of just attention to detail in a film doesn't. I mean, look, we've all been parts of films. it's a miracle that any film ever gets made. The amount of people,
Exactly.
the amount of things that it takes to put a film together just to get to shooting day one, and then shooting everything that you need and the schedules and keeping it on schedule and things that happen, and then post and getting that all together. I mean, it's a miracle that anything gets so to have something so well done as far as the attention to detail of the life and the characters and the people and the culture, both the soldier culture and the Iraqi culture. It's that those were reasons why I really love that movie.
I feel like there are a lot of movies that I'm surprised don't focus on things like that. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm whatever, but I just saw, what was it? The Guy Ritchie movie, The Covenant.
Haven't seen that one.
And I feel that the movies are similar. Jake Gyllenhaal basically and his team, they go in and they raid the missile, ISIS bomb building places.
Yeah.
And then his whole team gets killed. He gets shot. His translator, tracks him through territory, and then he gets out. And then his translator has money, a price put on his head, and he goes back in to get him.
Right. Yeah. I've seen parts of it.
Yeah, because we abandoned all those guys.
Right. Yeah. Just fuck them, I guess. But what was missing from this movie, and like after it was weird. After I saw Mosul, the first thing I thought about was everything that The Covenant was missing, and like what would have made it a great movie. And I don't know, but I would like for you to see The Covenant and then get back to me and let me know.
Well, there's I've seen parts of it.
It just seems so much more. They were so much more involved. Wanted the Hollywood aspect of it than they did the heart.
Well, think about this. I'll just show you. I know for a fact that The Covenant was, so a lot of times these days we'll use not paintball guns, but the little 6mm BB guns. And you will actually have the actors kind of imitate the recoil.
Yeah.
And teach them how to imitate the recoil. I mean, Charles and I do that. We teach how to do that. We do our best to make it so it's subtle, to make it look like it's like you're actually being moved by the object, not you're moving the object. It's hard to do. And then they put in the gunfire in post. Well, in The Covenant, that's what they did. Whereas in Mosul, they used real weapons using blanks. Right. If you think of what was the one, Lone Survivor. They used real weapons, real blanks. They're really shooting. That kind of thing makes a difference for the actor. I mean, that's why taking you guys out and teaching you to shoot and teaching you, putting you guys, I mean, you guys spent 8 hours in that heavy body armor. Yeah. In full kit. And we spent a full day in that hot sun shooting. I mean, I had taken my hats off to you because that was, and you wanted it. You asked for it.
Fuck yeah, that's so much fun.
But that teaches you, that informs you, and I think part of it's budget. Sometimes part of it is vision. I mean, Guy Ritchie's amazing, but he's British. He has a different take, a different idea of what this thing should be, an American soldier. So, could be any number of things.
I think you bringing up the training and the importance, we've talked about this on the show before, like as performers, the importance of blanks, and maybe this is we can finish with a little bit on set safety and stuff like that, because ever since Rust, obviously there's a big movement to get rid of blanks.
Live firing ammo, period.
Yeah. And just to say as a disclaimer, I'm speaking for myself. I'm also on the national work group for weapons on set, writing the national standards for weapons on set for ANSI. But I'm not speaking for that, and I'm not speaking for the SAG. I'm on the stunt safety committee. I'm speaking as myself today, as a performer. Being New York performers, the laws are very strict. I've shot so many blanks. I mean, always felt safe, always felt, as long as the protocol is followed, and that's really the issue. But I'm curious your thoughts, Scott, regarding firearms on set, safety issues, all the talk that's going on now. Because we've said here on the show that it's important for actors to go out and shoot real firearms if they want to know at least why we're imposing certain safety standards. Like when we go up to an actor with a non-firing replica and we still kind of say, hey, treat that like it's real, and they may not get it. Or there are some actors who are completely afraid of weapons, period, and feel like if they're playing a character they don't want, So I'm curious, you as also a veteran actor for a long time, but also as an expert, firearms expert, what are your thoughts on set safety, firearms, the sort of what's going on right now?
Sure. I will say, first off, our safety record as a whole for people that are armorers, if you think of the amount of production that happens, just say in the United States alone, everywhere it happens, you think of all of the shows that you've seen that involve firearms, and the amount of accidents and the amount of things that happen versus the number of weapons that are fired every day on a set. I mean, we have a stellar safety record.
Oh, sure.
For the most part.
We always say more people have died on sets from rigging accidents, other types of accidents than firearm accidents.
Now, as far as the rust, the 4 safety rules were broken, and they were broken. The thing is, you have the 4 safety rules. You treat every weapon as if it's loaded. Keep your finger off the trigger. You know your target, and you don't put your finger on the trigger until you're ready to fire. Right. So those are the 4 safety.
Hold on. Not one of 4. 4. All of them.
So let me explain this to you. So you can break 3 of those 4 rules and still be safe. But in order for a negligent discharge to occur, all 4 of those to hurt somebody, all 4 of those must be broken. The problem with breaking those 4 rules is that it can happen in a nanosecond, and that's what happened. The 4 rules were broken. The pistol was pointed at something it wasn't willing to destroy, right? The finger, he claims he didn't put the finger on the trigger. I mean, you can put a 1873 Colt Peacemaker fully loaded with a round in the chamber, which you're not supposed to do, on a table and leave it there for 1,000 years. It will not go off. It just won't go off. Yeah. It's an inanimate object. It's a rock, my opinion. But he broke all 4 of the rules, and he broke them like that, and someone died. So, yep. I mean, that's the thing. So we have those 4 safety rules, plus we have protocols.
Plus all the protocols that were broken leading up to that point where he could.
So the fact that the round was even able to be put in the weapon.
Oh my God. I don't care if Jesus himself comes down and says, I want live or ammunition on the set. I will tell him no. Absolutely not. Yeah. No, under no circumstances. Now we do have dummy rounds that do not have dimpled primers. Those do happen. And I have a couple of them over here. But those are kept in a very separate place, well marked, locked up, and very specifically, again, and we have eyes on, and you never do that. The protocol is, here's this, we're going to concur that these are these, we have a count right here. We're counting, especially since Brandon Lee and everything that happened there. But there's protocols that happen with those that it happen, the same way we do things with blanks and that kind of thing. So we're very, very, very careful. And
I guess rather than diving into rust, though, I'm curious, like if you had your druthers and they said to you, how should we change, or should we even change safety protocols? So the problem with like OSHA and ANSI and all this stuff, the protocol is great, or even the industry-wide safety bulletin for firearms, which we'll link to the show notes. That stuff often doesn't even come into play till after the accident happens, right? Then somebody goes back, oh, you violated this, you violated that, you violated this. So how, in your estimation, can we make sets safer, even if we didn't change the protocol, right? What can we do to
just enforce the protocol? Enforcing the protocol is hard because you have big stars, you have big actors, you have actors who, me coming to Keanu Reeves after a take and saying, can I have your weapon now? I will take your weapon. Thank you. I have your weapon. Because we're in between takes, and I will hold on to that and I will check it and make sure that it is set to go exactly in the same sequence, knowing that if he was at slide lock in the last shot, based on the script supervisor, that he needs to be slide locked for this shot. Or if he's not at slide lock and he's slide locked now, then we need to fix that. There's little things But enforcing the protocols is one thing, and it's hard because you have egos, you have big stars that claim they have weapons training and don't talk to me, and you have to be an asshole and be willing to get fired. And people have been I've not been fired, but other people I know have been fired because they have insisted on protocols, and the star goes, "Get this mother effer out of my face. I know what I'm doing." And then, I've watched TV shows where the editor didn't have anything but a guy clearing rooms at slide lock, because that's all he had, and there wasn't anybody on set that could tell them, look, you can't do this. And ultimately, if you're able to tell the director, what's that
for the listeners? No, just so people listening that may not know what slide lock is, that visually the gun is empty. That's
the slide is locked back, and it's empty and not able to fire. It's out. It's very obviously out of ammunition.
Yeah.
So it's hard, but being able to having an environment where you can enforce the protocols is a good step.
Yeah. I mean, I think, like you said, it's a big part of it is a cultural thing, and film, I think even more than theater, is still not that I have a lot of experience in theater, but talking to people in theater is more cowboy Wild West still. And one of my earliest jobs, the co-star was horseplaying with his gun, and I was rookie, and I walked over to him and very politely, and I was like, "Hey man, do you mind holstering that?" I just gave him a little 411 on, don't point at anybody, treat it like it's loaded, blah, 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 blah. And he was actually very thankful. He's like, "I've never held a gun in my life before this day." But then when I got back to hang in with the senior stunt guys and other people, they're like, "Yo, don't go talk to the actors like that."
Right.
And I'm like, that's not your place. And I'm like, listen, this dude's swinging a gun around. Right. I'm going to go stop it. I don't care if it's above my pay grade or whatever.
Yeah. So changing the culture, culture is would be a really big step, because there is a pecking order, and you're not supposed to talk to the actors. But as an armorer, if you come up and you tell them that, hey, stop screwing around and stop pointing that at the first AC, your eye line is here, and your line, don't point that directly at the camera. And the actor goes, who is this guy telling me what to do? Well, that's a cultural thing that now we have a safety violation. Right.
Yeah, we say all the time.
A lot of times, just like you said, you got to not give a fuck about getting fired, but sometimes it's good to have, like, I know when I work with Steve, and when we're on set and he's the coordinator and I'm helping him out, there's sometimes where I'm just kind of overwatching and just kind of overlooking everything because he's so focused on certain things, and then I'll just been like,
that happened on the student film.
And then it's like, oh yeah, and I feel like an armor kind of needs that guy all the time. They should just have that guy that's like,
yeah.
Well, that's why when I said, I think Steve, when we did that first class, and part of our safety brief is you are all range safety officers, every last one of you, and if anyone sees anything, raise your hand. And that's something when I give the safety brief on set, I give that same brief. If anyone feels unsafe, if anyone feels something that is unsafe, feel free to raise your hand. I will address it. You won't be yelled at, but it's absolutely for everyone's safety. If you see something or you feel unsafe with something, please, raise your hand and come talk to us. So yeah, everyone's an RSO.
It's like what Brett Cope said in his episode, safety and secrecy cannot exist in the same universe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Don't be afraid to call someone out.
Yeah. Dude, this was an amazing episode, dude.
This was a good episode, dude.
This is great. We're so glad you came on, man.
Oh, I'm excited. I was happy when you guys called.
I know you're not on the social medias very much, but I did link your website to the show notes.
Okay.
And,
yeah.
Is there anything, any other place people can reach out and follow, or is that pretty much the best place to get?
That's the best place. Yeah. I mean, since the strike, things have slowed down, and we're still starting to ramp back up as far as the teaching and the shows that we're doing and that kind of thing with Charles, Los Angeles Fight Academy and all that. So we're getting back in the swing. So that would be the best place. Dude. Yeah.
Hopefully we'll be back out to LA soon.
Definitely.
Yeah, man.
Can't wait. We'll do another session. We'll do something else fun.
Yeah. Thanks so much, dude.
Appreciate and by the way, you've given me, we didn't talk about, we forgot my favorite term, bro. You gave me my giggle trigger. I fucking love it. It's my favorite fucking term.
Yep.
And then before we close out, you gotta explain to people what the giggle trigger is.
Well, you tell me your interpretation of it.
Basically, so when we were shooting, you were like, okay, shoot at these 3 targets, and I was like, okay. But it was like a semi-automatic, but the trigger pull is so light that you could just kind of, and it's like you think you're pulling 3, you pull like 6, and you kind of laugh with it.
Yeah. He. Yeah, that's a Google trigger. Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, it's a lot of. I mean, look, doing that kind of stuff is a lot of fun, right? We do it safe,
for sure,
and it's a lot of fun.
We'll put some clips up in the show so people can
Excellent.
see.
Yeah, you guys did a great job. We had a lot of fun.
Yeah, man.
Thanks, man. It was great.
Thanks so much, dude.
Hey, my pleasure. You guys, great watching. I've watched a couple episodes. I really enjoy it. Look forward to seeing this
thanks,
one.
man.
Yeah.
Nice.
Totally.
Talk to you soon, brother.
All right. See you guys.
Film Fights with Friends is brought to you by Breakfall Studios. Executive producers Stephen Kepfer, Paul Veracci, Tiago Benedetti. Produced by Press Record Studios with Matthew Kaplowitz and Richard Butler. Associate producers Becca G.T. and Jared DeCrose. Edited by Matthew Kaplowitz. Associate producers Becca G.T. and Jared DeCrose. Edited by Matthew Kaplowitz. Original music by Aru Luster.